Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to the Guerin Report. I trust your weekend was fantastic. Tonight, something very special to us, a chance to be welcomed into the home of Craig Williams and his family in Melbourne to talk a little bit of racing, but more importantly, their most important battle, the battle to help the people of Ukraine and the victims of the war with Russia. That will be the mainstay of our interview tonight. We'll talk to Craig next week about the racing stuff. A privilege. Let's get to Craig. We'll start with how the racing spring feels and then get into the more serious stuff. Just a warning, this may be triggering for some people. Some very dramatic scenes here for a racing show. Craig Williams at home, starting us off with how the spring feels.
Yeah, it's always exciting being a jockey, a professional jockey. This is the stuff in all the winter months and all the years of building up and dreaming. And when I was at school, I used to write stories about being a jockey and winning races. This is what we work for. This is all part of it. So every spring it's always exciting, it's always daunting, there's always hopes and expectations, and we just hope that we can live up to most of them anyway.
We're talking 2 days after you pulled their pants down with Mr. Brightside at Flemington. That must have been a lot of fun.
He's a special horse to ride. He was born in New Zealand. He had one start in New Zealand, then come across to the Hayes boys, and I saw him run at Bendigo, and I rang him up and said, I'd like to ride this horse, and I thought it'd be nice because I wanted to win a championship, so he's going to win city races for me. But to think that after all that preparation and that journey with him, that he's now on his days the best miler in Australia, is really exciting. And we just saw him at one of his best performances again, winning 3 in a row Makybe Diva Stakes, which is very hard to do against that quality field, and he was just awesome.
You seem to have been at your peak for a very long time. There'll be people watching this who go, how old is Craig Williams? Like, he's been riding big winners for as long as they can remember. Today when I asked if we could come over, you said you're going to be doing a rolfing exercise. I thought that was golfing with an R at the start, so I thought it was like speed golf, but it's not speed golf. It's something which has become very important to you, mentally and physically. So we've got some footage here, but for you, what is rolfing and what do you get out of it?
So rolfing is a part of my preparation that we have, part of my routine, and Stephen Bremner is part of my team that I have, especially through the spring. Stephen was born in Canada. He resides in Hong Kong and he works on jockeys. He actually works on athletes, so it's quite funny. He's had an NFL football player, which is like 14 sizes bigger than me, and all just muscle and just a different profession, but another elite athlete. And he's got people, a lot of performers he looks after, and rolfing is quite unique. It's like an integrated massage, but he can explain it better than me, and hopefully you can use that.
We've got him on camera explaining how he panel beats you back into shape.
Yeah, but it's great. He's a big help and a big part of my team throughout the Spring Carnival.
Well, rolfing originated from a lady named Dr. Rolf, so the actual name is structural integration, which is a very specialized form of hands-on bodywork and integration therapy. And it's really designed in its essence to realign that body back to as perfect of symmetry as we can. So whether you're an athlete, a performing artist, a sedentary, a regular old folk, it's really designed to get you operating at the highest level possible.
So is it a case that people's work or sitting in role positions working or just not doing the right stuff gets their body out of alignment when it loses that symmetry, it's not as efficient?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other aspect of rolfing, which is really important, is it's a very high kind of educational tool. So we're actually teaching the client how to use their body better so that they become more independent, and I suppose closer to mastery of how to use their structure. So for people like Craig, who's an elite athlete at his best, these are very important tools outside of the obvious hands-on manipulation. He's learning so much about his body with me over the years, and of course I'm learning about him too. So it's teamwork. I'm just part of this team, one cog in the team.
Have you always been that disciplined about looking after yourself? We know a lot of young jocks like to have a drink on a Saturday night and enjoy themselves. Have you always been somebody who realised to maximise your ability, you had to look after yourself away from the racetrack.
I guess when you put it to me like that, and in retrospect, I look back and just say I'm a product of my environment, my upbringing. My parents taught me about work ethic and about you had to be in bed on the Friday early because you got competition the next day, and you can't disappoint people. And they're the parameters and the principles that I was brought up on. So I didn't know anything different. And I knew, I was told, it was drummed into me. If you give 100%, you're only going to get back, if you're lucky, 90. If you're really good, you might get back 95%. But that's just life in whatever you do. And I was very well supported, but I was very well schooled in that you had to work hard. So I guess when I look at it now, and I look at the people that I look up to riding, like Frank Dettori is one that is my idol. He's still riding. Yutaka Take still won Hong Kong Derby, 12 months ago. So these riders that I look up to, they're world-renowned elite jockeys, not just athletes, elite jockeys, and you're just going, well, I've got no excuse. I love what I'm doing. I'm healthy and well, and while I can, then I love doing it. And when you're given the opportunity to ride really good horses, and luckily if you've ridden a few, so you can sort them out pretty quick, the nice horses as well, which is a big help.
A lot of our viewers love to find out about jockeys' favourite horses and tactics and all the skill sets that go with being Craig Williams. But I think these days when people hear your name, they think of something far more important than just that, and that is, of course, your work and your wife's work with people affected by the war in Ukraine. So I know a lot of people in Australia have heard the story, many of the New Zealanders wouldn't have. Just talk about that, to have the person you're married to being Ukrainian, and then to wake up one morning when it was more or less declared as a war, even though the invasion had started before that. That must have been incredibly hard to deal with, knowing how much it was affecting your family, to know her home country was being invaded and people were being killed.
Well, the intro actually summed up the situation for Ukrainian people very well. It didn't just happen just over 3 years ago in February. It actually happened in 2014. It happened before then when Russia annexed a part of Ukrainian territory. It's a little bit like you losing the South Island and Australia losing Tasmania and Broome and just saying, oh, well, it's fine, he'll stop there. So again, there's obviously been a lot of conflict, but for me, for my age, for my time, I haven't seen conflict, living in Australia. Born in Australia, living in Australia, having Australian passport, travelling around the world. You take it for granted how privileged we are and wake up every morning geographically. Us in Australia, you guys in New Zealand, we're so lucky. We are so blessed from where we live geographically as well. But again, as your intro suggested, my wife is Ukrainian, so then we've been to Ukraine. We've got family in Ukraine, and of course, Lacey always goes home every year to see her mum and her dad when her father was alive, and we take our children back. Two of our children born in Ukraine. So when we knew what happened in 2014, and that was the conflict. But it wasn't until the full-scale invasion. It wasn't until 2 weeks before when our media in Australia and CNN and BBC has been ramping up about what had been building up, and it wasn't until we saw the Winter Olympics in China and Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping were together, and they had cameras on them and obviously having a discussion with their translators. And my wife turned to me and said, we believe that it's going to happen, and they're having a conversation, and the conversation went that we're going to invade Ukraine, and the Chinese delegates basically said to them, we'll just do it after the Olympics. And I went, oh, that can't be possible. People don't do that. Like, they just couldn't do it unprovoked. International boundary, sovereign territory. Your neighbours, your family, and I didn't understand. That was an off the cuff remark for someone who hasn't been educated in history of, enough history. I guess we're all guilty. I guess we only know what we know when we know it, and that was another perfect example. And then when it happened, and it was the atrocities that happened straight after, and it was all just like, we were broken. There's an easy word to use. We were completely broken. And I was like, oh. So Lacey's following up and stuff and reading a lot, and so we said we need to do something. We need to do something.
But isn't it incredibly daunting? Like, it's such a mammoth problem. To think we need to do something, where do you start to get involved in helping victims of a massive war?
Well, unfortunately, we knew we couldn't stop it, so that's pretty simple. But it's about doing what we can do to help people. Just the right thing to do. It's not that difficult. It's just
A lot
it's just
of
doing
people
good things.
don't do it though, Craig. So what ignited in you that made you say, I need to be part of this, or we need to be part of this?
Well, we do have skin in the game. You know, Lacey's Ukrainian. We've got family there, so it's a lot different than, you know, there's a lot of hardships. You know, children get sick and people die, and you know, we do everything for our children. So the children are our future, but you know, the stories that were coming back, what the Russian Federation were doing to civilians and the torturing, and you know, if you look, and they're our kids, it's really bad. So we couldn't stop that. But then when people are dying, innocent people are dying due to the war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we went, okay, well, and it was through thoroughbred racing industry. I reached out to Paul Fudge because I remember Robert telling me earlier that, you know, a very good friend of Paul's, was a person who saved his life, was ex-Special Forces, and we got introduced to Tim Redburn, and I remember sending out a message and said, oh, Paul, can you help us out? We need to get things to save lives in a war-torn country. And he went back straight to Tim, and I remember getting the email after the races on a Saturday. It was strange because Paul's always really quick and he's a really kind and caring person, and I thought, oh, I can't believe I didn't got an email straight back from him. But it was 2 days, he was away with his family, and I got an email, it was like 34 pages, and it was like all these things from a bloke called Tim Radburn, who I'd never met before, but it was introduced as an ex-Special Forces, understood the situation. So then next minute, instead of me just thinking I could just go down to Chemist Warehouse and buy, you know, first aid kits, which is what I thought, all of a sudden, you're just opening up to what happens in conflict areas to do with war. And next minute you're looking at tourniquets, Israeli bandages, quick clot, all these things, and it's like very daunting for me. I'm a jockey.
Who helps you source those things? You can't just go down the road and buy them, and then once you do source them, you have to get them somewhere close to Ukraine.
Well, that was the thing. We said that for us to make a difference, and it was only, I think it was 4 weeks into or 6 weeks into the full-scale invasion, so it was February, so we're into March, and the racing was on, and it was the Sydney Cup, and so the way that we would guarantee it from us, that we had to make sure it got there. You know, we couldn't trust postage or expresses that it got caught somewhere, because if it got somewhere and someone had to answer a question, parcels can't answer the question. So we wanted to make sure that our goal was to actually make sure we made an effort to actually get where it needed to go. So then the Sydney Cup went, and we had a lot of people helping us out. It was quite good. And at the same time, my wife and children actually, we put in more money in that, and we found people that were already displaced, and the Australian government was very supportive. So people had come back, and they've only got their shopping bags, but they might have had their local currency, hryvnia. So when they came out, Lacey got in contact with them through their social media stuff and said, you know, we'll give you Australian dollars, what do you want for it? So we weren't there to work out the exchange rate is. We're helping out completely displaced Ukrainians in Australia that lost everything, only what they got. So we were able then to give them Australian dollars, so we had hryvnia. So then we took that back, because companies had told us you still need the place they can still buy things in Ukraine. So we got the survival packs to save lives. We also had money to be able to give to the people, to be able to buy things, you know, food, medicine, whatever it took, to be able to make sure that things still keep functioning. Things that we just learned along the way. And then, so we had a lot of people helping us out, very supportive. But we kept it hush-hush, just our team, because we're going into a war zone, and that was our advice from our security. So we were able to deliver that. And once we left Poland, and you went through all the checkpoints and everything, and they grab your passport and they go, oh, Australia, that's a long way to come. I said, look, we're delivering the things in the back. And they said, oh, well, look, you'll have a problem over there because they're not part of the European Union. And then you start understanding, what's that got to do with anything? And then you realise how complex things are, and the situation for Ukraine, how more challenging those things are. It's not just straightforward. And then once we left, and 400 metres later, you're on the Ukrainian side at the checkpoint, and you're going, oh my God, you just feel the enormity. Like, you got young men and women with fully armoured guns, just 400 metres away. They're over there. They've got their weapons, but they're not at war's end. And then you see military things going around, and it's like, oh my goodness, it was like very daunting. Then we saw our group when we were in Ukraine, and when we were exchanging the things, and you could just see the emotion. They were speaking Ukrainian, and I only know a few words and phrases, and just you could see the emotion that they're so grateful that people in Australia give a damn about their struggle. And then when I was putting the packs in the back of the vehicle, they've got their vest, and I'm thinking, oh, it's like a jockey's vest. I couldn't help myself. I picked it up. I could hardly lift it, and you realise this is what war is. It's not a padded vest or something. This is metal, steel things, plates in this vest that people have to wear to hope that they don't get shot or shrapnel, or those parts of the body are protected. It's just like, and all of a sudden, so then on the way back out, and it was snowing at the time. It was like we left Sydney and it was hot and raining, but it was snowing there, and it was like really cold. And because of the conflict, nothing just goes fast. Like we were there for a few hours each side of the thing, so a long time thinking and feeling and all this stuff. And then on the way out, we let everyone know that we're out safely, and everyone was like relieved. But we didn't even see the enormity of what full-scale invasion is until our next trip.
That was 3 years ago. And how many trips have you had there since? And without trying to be crude about the finances, how much money have you been able to raise? And we're hoping we can raise some of our viewers to put these trauma kits together and things that save people's lives or change people's lives. What sort of numbers are we talking at this stage?
Well, our group's been over there 7 times, so Lisa and I have been over there 4 times since the full-scale invasion, and our group's been over there another 3, so our security goes over through winter. They actually blew up the Kakhovka Dam, and they needed desalination tablets, so we were taking over trauma kits at the same time. And again, now we've amassed over 2 million Australian dollars. Now that's with finances and also with products. So people, Australia, New Zealand as well, people in Hong Kong and Japan to do with the thoroughbred racing industry have been amazing. And people even on the street still, we get some people that donate every 2 weeks from us. Obviously, I'm assuming their pension. There's $5 every time. We can't wait until the time is that we give back their money and say, hey, look, thanks. It's no need. The war's ended on Ukrainians' terms, and thank God. But people are really supportive of Lace and our projects. But they're supporting us to make sure we're making a change in Ukraine. And we want to guarantee that every dollar goes to contributing to saving lives or making their lives better. So that was our thing when people were giving up their hard-earned money. So that's one thing that we set out. So we decided, and it got help with our accountant, how to set up that. It will go through our website, which is a little bit more cumbersome, but it meant that the administration fees is ran by the person who runs my website and does all my social media. I pay them for the work. So every dollar then would go to all these things, so no administration fees. And when we went over there 12 months later from the first time, and because of so many people's contribution and donations, which things were great over there, like the winter they needed jackets, they needed clothes. There's so many companies that were amazing. And then the finances were buying things. The trauma kits, of course, they weren't gifted to us. And we actually had over 1,000 kilos of equipment to take into Ukraine. So we purchased 4 vehicles in Poland, and they got repurposed into ambulances. It was quite amazing what we were able to do with advice and people around. Then next minute we're delivering 1,000 kilos of stuff to save lives. And the 4 vehicles that then got, unfortunately they didn't survive long in Ukraine because they got blown up by the Russian Federation, but they were then repurposed to go to use as makeshift ambulances in the front line. So we're really proud of all the things that we've had to do, but it always changes.
It's quite jarring to talk about. Is there, from a fundraising point of view, is there a fatigue because there's another war with a lot of news about it at the moment going on in the world, and people get on with their own lives, Craig? Is it hard to keep that momentum going of raising funds, which you need to buy this stuff, while also being Craig Williams? You're an elite athlete. You've got other things to do in your life. Is there a case that people sometimes forget about the war in Ukraine? Not your people, but other people, normal people.
Again, we've got skin in the game, so we're affected, we're connected. It's made me realise that not everyone has the same lives that we're lucky enough to have in Australia. So I don't take things for granted anymore. I'm more grateful for things. So that's helped me on a personal level. And when I have success, I'm motivated and inspired, and when I think I'm having a bad day or a bad moment, I just realise what they're dealing with, what I feel is a bad moment, professionally, is nothing. You know, they are air raid sirens, and you know, they got to hope that they're alive the next day. And it's like living in houses like we do, go to jobs. Well, they don't have that luxury all the time. And
is there any? This isn't the right term, but you hear about survivor's guilt. Sometimes people who survive something feel guilty that they survived it and other people don't. And you have been over to a war zone. Do you feel sometimes when you're driving around here, or you're getting people cheering your name at a Flemington, that shit, my life's pretty good, and these people who are just human beings like me aren't having any form of real life at the moment? Is there guilt's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Does it get to you sometimes that we have it so easy, many of us, compared to what's going on over there for entirely innocent people?
I get frustrated, would be the word I'd use, when people say, "Are you sure you're okay to be over there?" And I'm thinking, well, they were just born in that country. They didn't have a choice where I want to be in a country that's at conflict. So it's one of those things that we are in a position that we're able to do something, and we feel good about giving and doing. And again, the only reason why we've been able to amass over $2 million is because we find like-minded people. And
there's also part of it because you're Craig Williams. You're connected to a lot of people who I presume are pretty successful or motivated people.
Yeah, most people have been unbelievably supportive and great. Getting back to the fatigue part, you're right. You know, people walk up to Lacey and I goes, "Look, we haven't seen anything on the news or in the newspaper. So is the war finished?" No, it's not. People dying every single day. If not, it's only intensified, which is horrific. And as we found out 12 months ago, we were driven from Kyiv to the front line, which was 8-9 hour drive, and all the way down there. And we had lunch at one of the places, and they said, our security said, "You've only got 15 minutes. So, it was all beautiful food, and it was nice. We just met up with the people, and they're showing us and telling us what they're doing, and they're not far from the contact line. And anyway, we got out of it the next day. The gentleman who actually who put on our food, he got killed the next day. So that was a stark reality of what you're dealing with. And
how's an experience? See, most of us aren't going to have that experience, luckily. How is it when you are walking around the next day and somebody tells you that?
Well, we were sad, we were upset, you know, we cried, and because, you know, he was never a soldier, and all he was doing is trying to protect his country, his family, and everyone else's. And he's lost his life because he didn't want to be invaded by another country or ruled, controlled, and they just, you know. So basically, it's hard to share the messages that just because they're wearing green on camo, or they look like, you know, a lot of those vehicles, they tried to actually paint their vehicles to makeshift ambulances into green to camouflage them because they were targeting ambulances. The Russian Federation was targeting on ambulances and medics, you know, so they had to start evolving even the vehicles that we have. And, you know, people might seen a picture, I thought, oh, hang on, they're soldiers, they're supporting soldiers or military. And well, no, we're supporting the people of Ukraine to defend themselves, but none of these people, you know, I look around the room, we've got cameramen and technical people, I'm a professional jockey, you're involved in so many different things and media. People are now had to make choices that we have to make sure that we try and save our family. So they all...
I mean, if somebody invaded Australia, you have to make a choice whether you pick up a rifle and do something about it or you don't. And I suppose that's the exact choice many of the people you have met have had to make.
None of them were ever soldiers that I've met into were never soldiers, and they're now in the defence of Ukraine. And when you see the people and you see them now, and that, so 12 months ago we were driven to the front line. Unfortunately, from our experience 12 months later, which is only a month ago, you found out that the front line is now in this capital city of Kyiv. They just bomb, and when you see the people, they're fatigued. You know, they don't know if they have to go to bed and they have to wake up early or through the night and go to an air raid bunker to be safe, or do we just stay in our place and say if they hit us, you know, it's been going on for over 3 years, and the Russian Federation attack and decimate civilian apartment blocks, hospitals, churches. Part of their air raid bunkers, their bunkers to be safe in air raids, is train stations. They even attack them. So it's just one of those things that you just go and you just don't realise. So I don't get disappointed about other people or, you know, where I am, because everyone's just living their life. It's important. But it's also important just to hopefully take a step back and realise that not everyone, if we're having a great day, you know, has the same stuff. If you think you're having a bad day, like, you know, sometimes you still feel pretty crap, and you know, you're feeling crap. But you know, there's other people out there, and there are people that we support. Malaysia and I do what we do, but we can't do it without people's contributions and support.
Next week, we're going to talk horses with you and life and horses. But before then, we hope you write a stack of winners over the spring. If anybody's watching this, predominantly in New Zealand, but some Australians watching this or people overseas, if you kick one home for them and they get their 20 or 30 bucks or their $100, and good luck to you if you're having to go, what do they do? How's the easiest way for them to say, look, I've heard the story, I now know more about it, I want to give 10 or 20 or 30, I want to help a little bit. What's the easiest way for them to do that?
Well, every bit of money helps. So there is no contribution that's too small, because it all goes into amassing the products that saves lives. So it's a great thing. We think it's a great thing, so we'll be grateful. They go to my website, craigwilliamsjockey.com. There's a couple of handles that do at craigwilliamsjockey that goes there, and on there there's some bank details. But what we also ask is to also give us your email address, because what we have learnt from our industry is we want to actually show the people that have contributed to all that, not only you've already been kind enough to donate, but most importantly, you want to see where it actually goes and what change it makes. So then you'll get an update, and then all of a sudden you should be really proud of what you're contributing to. And that's what we'd like to do. So please, if you can contribute, fantastic, but please also send some contact details so we can keep you up to speed about what you're actually doing, so then you know, and you should really feel good about whatever donation it is going to contribute to saving someone's life in a country where people are really struggling.
Mate, it's a dauntingly large story and an incredibly large problem. It's so good to hear about it. We're hoping that there's plenty more winners over the spring so people can get involved in that. But yeah, we'll obviously keep pushing the Ukrainian flag in front of them. And mate, it's hard to not sound patronising by saying this, but as a racing person, a lot of people are incredibly proud of what you've done. You must feel that.
No, it's just wish you didn't have to do it.
It's a story I had heard before, but to sit there and see the tears in Craig's eyes as he welled up talking about him and his family's experiences was truly touching. If you back a Craig Williams winner over the spring, here is the address where you can donate. As Craig says, the smallest donation can buy a bandage or help buy a tourniquet to help real people whose country was invaded for no fault of their own. So Craig Williams doing wonderful stuff. There is the address you can donate at if you back a Willow winner over the spring. More on Craig next week and the more fun racing type stuff. That'll be on the Guerin Report next Monday night, trackside.co.nz, or of course here on Trackside from 8 p.m.